Welcome, everyone, to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and this is Once Upon a Time in the Outer Rim, where we cover the Mandalorian from a metamythic perspective. And joining me for this adventure is my good friend and yours, Alex Kane.
Thank you for having me.
We are going to be discussing episode 20 of chapter 20 of The Mandalorian, the Foundling. We like to deep dive into it from a fairy tale, mythic, meta perspective. And so that means, talking about these things from a Joseph Campbell perspective, using symbolism from a Jungian psychology perspective, as well as archetypes and other mythic concepts. And just a reminder to follow us on social media, as well as like and subscribe on your app of choice to keep up to date. And of course, you can support us on Patreon, or we now have merch, which is great, which you can, of course, purchase if you desire. Those are the ways you can support us. All right. Let's dig into The Foundling, which was written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and directed by Carl Weathers.
Yeah, Carl did one episode in season 2 that was pretty good. So it's nice to see him back. He did sort of the car chase episode, I think of it as, like where they go to the cloning facility and
like there just happened to be a cloning facility on that planet.
Yeah, like on Navarro somewhere, right?
Yeah, like in the canyon or something. Yeah, it was interesting that this episode, I would say, was more solidly put together than that episode. Yeah.
More memorable, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to have him back, which is good. What did you think of the episode?
It was fun, I mean, there's like a lot to say about what I felt about it, but a lot of that is kind of overshadowed by Ahmed Best.
You kept on messaging me like I can't stop thinking about Ahmed Best in this episode.
It was kind of like I didn't know what to say about anything else for a little while because I was just kind of overwhelmed by how cool that stuff was.
So cool.
But yeah, this is sort of a very traditional sort of young boy becomes a man with some complications kind of story, a very Jon Favreau, very Mandalorian traditional little tale with
it felt a little like season 1, right? Like shorter episode.
It was a lot like Rick's first episode with the egg, and the mud horn. Like a very,
Even the like look of the land looked very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got like the winding canyon with like the river and like the river valley type deal, which is very Mando season 1. I don't know.
To me, there's sort of two things happening. There's almost 2 episodes happening in the same episode. One is for Grogu, obviously. He's experiencing a Lap of the Goddess episode. He gets to, experience that. And Lap of the Goddess means basically it's a place to rest and recuperate and sort of deal with all of the hard things that have happened to you before something larger is going to happen. Quite often, it's sort of just peaceful and restful, and it also symbolically is tied to a return to the womb. He spends most of the episode while the party is away inside of the cave, basically watching the armorer and having flashbacks of traumatic experiences. And so this is how this classifies as a Lap of the Goddess episode. He basically returns to formative memories of the past and works through those.
You've got so you've sort of got Grogu going through like Din's interior journey from season 1, while Bo goes through Din's exterior journey through
exactly.
season 1,
and the second part of the episode and the second episode within the episode is entirely Bo's journey. She is the leader of the party, and so it's all about her end to end. Din ain't moving at all right now. He is very, very static. And that is fine. Characters are allowed to be static. But I think that it's a little off-putting for some people watching it and expecting Din to be the main character.
Sure. Yeah.
But
that happens in a lot of shows, I think, multi-season shows.
We've said from the beginning that it wasn't going to be just about Din the Mandalorian. It's going to be about the Mandalorian, the people.
Yeah. I think like it's meaningful that Grogu's like flashing back to the Clone Wars, just as Din flashed back to the Clone Wars, and you're sort of seeing like, the way this one, quote unquote people were affected by,
the rise of the Empire.
The same stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yep.
So we start out the episode with sort of training in the covert. I gotta say, their training methods are not super impressive. Shooting wildly at the water feels like something that is not very effective. There is no target practice.
I was sort of making notes in my head, not actually typing them out, but the first time I watched it like late at Tuesday night or whatever, I was like, okay, here we have the action figure nonsense that like just very kind of I don't know, like perfunctory Boba Fett action type stuff. It's very simple.
It sort of did feel like this is how kids play with action figures. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it was like, let's like get this out of the way of like, okay, we've got all these Mandalorians in costume with jetpacks and blasters.
They can't just be standing around staring at things. They got to be doing stuff. What do? They don't hunt for food. They don't take off their helmets to eat together as a community. I guess they just fight each other.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to have a community entirely based around the perfection of violence is not ideal, right? There's no balance in that, right?
I remember when I was a kid, I went to like these Cub Scout summer camp things.
Oh yeah.
And it reminded me of that, where like, you have a bunch of 7, 8-year-old boys, 9-year-old boys, however old we were, just kind of like going from station to station and doing all this goofy shit, like like archery and God knows what.
I was a Girl Guide, which is like the equivalent of the girls' side in Canada, and
Gotcha.
Okay, so we're making bannock, which is like an indigenous food basically today, and then you're going and shooting archery, and then you're making like a beaded necklace.
Nice.
Yeah, it did feel a lot like that.
Yeah.
Did it feel helpful? Like, did this feel like good training? Like, you're like, yes, these people are prepared.
I don't know. I mean, you have like basically like paintball guns with 3 shots, and I don't know. It just felt like a kid version of like a Western duel, I don't know. That's a good question.
Din's like, Grogu's got to start training. I'm sad of my kid not being the kid that's always never picked for baseball or for soccer.
Yeah.
It felt like that. It felt like, oh my God, my kid is behind.
Yeah.
And so he brings him over to be like, and you have a challenger. And they're all like, he's too small. And he's like, nah, you got to do it.
Yeah.
And so he's going to be fighting Ragnar, who was the kid at the first episode that got his helmet and was almost killed by the thing in the water.
The ever-present threat of giant alligator.
This kid is tiptoeing on death's door all the time.
Yeah, he's cursed. Yeah.
He's legitimately cursed. Yeah, like he's in his like baptismal ceremony and he almost dies, and he's in I'm a fight scenario and almost dies. But anyway, so they put up these like, he puts up this like sort of fight against him, and he says, he kind of just, pushes back on Din, and Din says, one does not speak unless one knows. And Ragnar's like, I know. And Din says, perhaps this lesson is for you.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. It was cute.
There was a couple like catchphrasey lines in this episode where they're like, "Oh, they've got to replace this as the way with like something new that's catchy that people want to say." I felt like this was intended for, one of those. I don't know.
No one has as amazing lines as Quill, in my opinion. His were always the best.
He's very missed. I agree.
I miss him. But what's cool is like Ragnar chooses a weapon that obviously Grogu won't be completely terrible at. It's not like a gun. It's darts.
Yeah.
But to your point, it is sort of like miniature paintball guns.
Mm-hmm.
They line up to fight, and Grogu gets his little like dart gun attachment to his arm, and Bo takes him aside and says it reminds her of her father, how he used to like put a lot of pressure on her, and that just means that Din is proud of him. This felt ultra familial.
Yes, like the mom commenting on the dad. 100%. Like Bo already has like this really like closeness with Grogu.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, he's like being pushed because he's powerful, right? He's got this, raw power or whatever.
So you end up having a scenario in this episode where you have the Too Good Mother and you have the devouring mother, and we get to see both in this, which is cool. So Bo is representative of the Too Good Mother, which sort of gives you the pep talk, etc., and the devouring mother gives you, who's much like Baba Yaga, right? Gives you the truth of the world, which is hard and full of suffering and pain. And for Grogu, we get both. We also get both in another way. Yeah. So they fight, and Grogu gets hit 2 times and needs to be reminded he's awesome. So Din's like, "Remember, you're awesome." And then he takes him out very, very quickly using, of course, his leapfroggy skills. Yeah. Which is cute.
They really they push the puppetry to the limit in this episode where they're like,
Grogu's walking.
Yeah.
He's making frowny faces.
I'm sure there's more like CGI than is like obvious, but it's like it feels like they've mastered the practical puppetry, and they're like really putting it to use here.
Yeah, his little step waddles are always so good. I love it. Ragnar is frustrated, and so goes and looks at the lake after the loss, and a dragon flies in and captures him, just straight up taking the child.
This
poor kid. And all the Mandalorians fly after them in their jetpacks, right? Especially Paz Vizsla.
Yes. Who you start to really like in this episode, I feel like. He's kind of been like an unlikable prick thus far. But in this episode, I was like, all right, he can stay, I guess. I like him. I don't know.
It just raises many questions about Mandalorian life.
I suppose it does. Yeah, I saw some of that floating around on Twitter. Like, anyway.
Yeah, we'll get there. It's fine. But they're unable to keep up with Bo. Being smart took her ship, and so was able to actually follow the dragon to its home, found out where the nest is, identified it, went back to the covert, and decides to lead a party to go after Ragnar with Paz and, of course, a subsection of the covert to go and rescue this child. It entirely reminded me of The Searchers.
Yes, The Searchers. Yes, I thought the same thing.
There's so much of The Searchers in this. Very Western across the board, of course, they're very worried about approaching the nest and making too much noise with the ship because, if they scare the dragon, the boy will just be killed, right?
Right. Yeah, it's like a stealth operation, they said. Yeah.
Yeah. So the rescue party leaves, they fly off, and while they're away, the armorer babysits Grogu. This is where we get the Lap of the Goddess pieces. So she she brings him back into the cave and she teaches him some harsh lessons about life. Not in a hard way. It never is in a lap of the goddess scenario, but essentially he goes into therapy. He gets caught up in the motions of what is happening and the flashes of the fire and the forge. She talks about how the forge is the heart of Mandalorian culture, shaping the steel like they shape themselves. And it's an absolute amazing metaphor for integrating the shadow aspects of yourself and the trauma that you've experienced in the past. And we get these flashbacks to Order 66 and basically what Anakin, Darth Vader attacking the temple with the clone troopers.
Yep. Yeah, he's like hiding in an elevator, right?
Yeah,
Grogu.
like he was walking down a hallway when they are attacking, and then he went into an elevator and managed to get out and run into Kelleran Beck, who was played by Ahmed Best, who of course is best known for his amazing acting as Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, kind of a VFX pioneer.
Yeah,
really.
Absolutely.
Like, Andy Serkis gets like a lot of credit, but there was like a moment on Twitter where Ahmed Best kind of like said, hey, like I was there too kind of thing a couple years ago. And Serkis is like, yeah, no, absolutely. And Jar Jar was a big deal for
huge
that movie and for what George wanted to do to push technology. And it's cool. Like they didn't know what would work really, and so they just kind of built Jar Jar as they went. And it's cool.
Yeah, and like my husband Kyle loves Jar Jar, like loves him, so he does not tolerate any Jar Jar dissing.
Yeah.
Kelleran Beck, who Ahmed Best has actually played before in the Jedi Temple Challenge, which you can actually see on YouTube. There was like a release of a couple of episodes, and it was basically like a very 1980s, 1990s kids game show that came out.
Yeah.
And it's in a mysterious place, and these kids all like magically show up because they're strong with the Force. They're real kids, and they all like go through temple challenges to become Jedi. It's really cute.
Yeah, I don't know if I really have watched it, but I do remember growing up, like the Legends of the Hidden Temple and all that stuff.
Yeah,
it's really hugely popular at one point.
Very inspired by that idea. And they're being chased by clone troopers, which are voiced by Tim Morrison, which is also so fun to have him back.
Yeah.
They enter in, he puts Grogu in like a little sidecar on a speeder, and they're chased on a speeder chase through Coruscant. Oh my gosh, this was great. This whole sequence, everything with Ahmed Best was so good. Yeah,
like they're getting a lot of mileage out of that Coruscant footage that they've, put together, I guess, for his shows. And we see like Monument Plaza again with the summit of the mountain.
Yeah, with Umat. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
It was just like, hey, we just saw that last episode.
Yeah, it's the thing. It's the thing.
It's the peak.
Yeah, it was really fun. Like the speeder was cool, and I don't know. Like Best is just so cool in the role. Like, I would love like an 8-episode Kelleran Beck series. Like honestly, at this point, I don't know.
He deserves it, and also he is the hottest of Jedi.
He's so cool, man. Like he wields 2 lightsabers, kind of like Anakin in Attack of the Clones. There's a lot of Attack of the Clones imagery here, which
I mean, it brings us like they go down the sort of transit tunnel and turn off, and he ends up at a platform with a Naboo ship, and he says, my friend has helped us here, basically. Yeah. And so the question is friend, because it's a Naboo ship. It's the same one that Padme used in Attack of the Clones.
Right.
Is that Representative Binks?
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, because
they might as well just go full bore and have Ahmed Best play 2 characters at once. I want it.
That's interesting. Yeah,
I want Jar Jar Binks to come back.
That is probably the wink that they're making, that this is like Jar Jar's ship that Padme has like given him. Since
because Padme's ship ends up being given to Vader in the comics.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the Greg Pak ones.
Yeah.
Like she ends up in episode 3 with like the wide wingspan one that goes to Mustafar, but this is definitely the episode 2 one.
This is the one that but they probably have more than one of the Nabooian class ships.
I suppose, yeah.
They probably have more than one. Anyway, so is this Jar Jar Binks' ship? I hope so.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, now that you said that, I was just thinking
say
like
yes.
Padme.
Just say yes.
Yeah.
Just say yes, Dave.
Yeah. I really want to know like all the behind the scenes like thought process behind this episode. Because I was just so like shocked and happy when it was Ahmed who showed up. I don't know. I was like, I want to know the story behind this. And I guess maybe it was just Filoni, but I don't know. It felt like there was something else at work here, like Kathy or George or somebody who was like, oh, you should have it be Ahmed, you know? I don't know. It was so cool.
I mean, I could see George saying all of this.
Yeah. I mean...
Yeah. And whenever Dave is involved, I'm always like, oh, he called George. I always say that.
I mean, George has such he's got a sense of humor, and he loved Ahmed. He loved Jar Jar. He jokingly gave episode 2 the working title, Jar Jar's Big Adventure, just because... to poke fun at the fans.
Jar Jar is the key to all of this.
Yeah, like
right.
Yeah,
and the truth is, Jar Jar is the thing that like was tricked and caused the downfall of the Republic by giving him emergency powers, right? Like, and doing those things. He was tricked.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that was planned long term. I feel like that just naturally evolved out of George's. Probably. I don't know, thought process over time. It's so funny. But yeah.
It also sort of comes like Jar Jar being a Sith Lord. Like there's kind of a nod and a wink to that idea too.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But Kelleran back leaves with Grogu on the ship. The Naboo guard are basically left behind to stop the clones from chasing them. They're probably not going to survive. And we assume, I think we can correctly assume they're going to be going to Naboo.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I like that.
Maybe.
Yeah. Grogu might have been at Padme's funeral.
Or going to the Gungan city, or
okay,
you know, like there's a lot of interesting things, and it doesn't feel like we're done with these flashbacks from Grogu.
Oh, I hope you're right. I really hope you're right about that. That
like we're getting like little mini adventures of him working through things that have happened that led him to the point of him being, you know, captured and basically held.
I definitely had in my notes that this episode, it sort of invokes that there's always a bigger fish thing, you know?
Yeah.
It plays with that. So you bringing up Oda Gunga, the underwater city, is kind of funny. I would love to see that come back. I always liked that. Yeah. I don't know. I loved, I would, like I said, I'd take a whole season series of Kelleran Beck just being a Jedi.
He's amazing. I love him. So the armor basically finishes up making, of the scraps, a sort of chest piece for Grogu with the Mudhorn crest on it.
Yeah.
Which is so cute. And it's adorable. We flash back to the arrival of the party, sort of parking the ship and needing to approach on foot. This is the equivalent of parking the horses and needing to approach on foot.
Yeah.
And they end up getting to the base of the rock tower. And, you know, there's kind of a rocky outcrop that protects them from being seen. And they're like, well, let's camp here and climb at first light.
Yeah.
And they all sit around the fire and they're chatting. And then they pull out their food and everyone goes off to go take off their helmet and eat. And because Bo is leading the party, she gets the light of the fire.
Yeah.
This is so hard to watch for me personally because community is tied to nourishment of spirit and of body. And there is no nourishment of spirit if you're not sharing meals together.
Yeah, it's very just lonely. Yeah, I don't know.
It's absolutely tied to the isolationist aspect of being an incubating egg.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you think of like all the traditions and holidays and just like family, things that we do in our society. And it's like all about like the table, Jesus at the Last Supper and all that, like that image of like that's community and fellowship. And
But if we tie this back to Din's journey, this was episode 4 of season 1.
Yeah.
Was the village episode where Din struggled with the fact that he had to take off his helmet alone and couldn't be around other people and couldn't be part of the community. And we're seeing the exact same reaction from Bo.
Yeah.
Also a Lap of the Goddess episode 4.
Yeah, with O'Mara being
O'Mara.
Yeah. We've had a lot of episodes like that.
What are you fighting for? Question mark, question mark, question mark. What are you trying to protect? And I don't think that anyone within this Mandalorian covert has a good answer of what they're trying to protect other than just living. And they're just surviving day to day. And there has to be something more than that. Yeah.
The opening image of the episode essentially is like Grogu playing with these little rocks in the sand. They're buried.
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
They're crabs hiding in plain sight, and it's basically a metaphor for the Mando's existence. They're
exactly
hiding, buried in the sand. And they're not actually able to flourish, really. Yeah, like they don't move until Grogu picks one up, and then it has to because it's like freaking out or whatever.
Yeah, and they only move because they're scared instead of through desire and seeking what they want.
Yeah, like that sort of like reactivity of like, oh God, now I have to do something to not get swallowed up, rather than your whole like seek joy type thing, which would be better.
Well, and also like it's not healthy you're hiding your truth, right? If you're hiding your face, you're stopping yourself from ever truthfully connecting with another person.
Sure. Yeah, you're like hiding your soul and your
Yeah, exactly. So we're faced with the Tower of Rocks. What did this Tower of Rocks represent to you? Reminding you that this episode is for Bo.
For Bo, huh?
You got to think back to where she was.
Oh, like you mean in the water?
Well, like in the fact that she had lost the Darksaber and she had essentially felt like she couldn't, lead anybody.
Oh, right. Yeah, she was kind of like on a throne with no one around.
Yeah.
And, she kind of lost any sense of community. Yeah.
And she lost the thread, right? And now she's climbing a rock pillar to save a child.
Yeah.
With a community. But, towers like this, like when you have to climb a tower, it represents, especially one that's tall and you have a fear of there's the fear of falling. It's that you fear the challenge that you have to embark in it because it's a tower. It's related to leadership.
Gotcha.
So this episode is entirely, with the exception of the Grogu bits, about Bo and her struggling to still want to be a leader. They approach the nest and they're climbing a lot of stuff. It's very scary. They're very worried about making too much noise. And Paz is like, he's my son.
Yeah. There's like a couple references to the fact that this flying dinosaur has like taken children before and they were like too noisy on the way up to rescue them, and the thing ate the child multiple times potentially.
And Paz is like losing his mind. Like this is the most like crazy acting from Jon Favreau from a voice acting perspective. He's genuinely like very scared he's gonna lose his son. This raises questions about it just raises questions about the Mandalorian covert. Who's the mom?
Yeah, honestly,
where was he when they were like in those Book of Boba Fett episodes?
Gotta be the armorer's kid, right? Or no?
I have no. Whoa, interesting.
What? No, I don't know.
I mean,
Well, no, the kid's pretty old, so it could be anybody's kid.
Yeah. I mean,
you're just saying where was the child when he was like,
yeah, this is just the
he was off with his mom somewhere. Yeah.
Is his mom still around? I have questions.
Listen, this is Star Wars. We're not going to get into details like where is the mother, okay? Like nobody's interested in,
mothers don't get names. I get it.
Somebody brought up the fact that
me.
What's that?
Bad me asking for a mother's name.
Somebody brought up the fact that Padme is not mentioned by name in the sequel trilogy again, and I was like, oh man, it's
so hard.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
The bar was very low, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. You could have given her a name.
Ragnar's mother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care. It could have been Ragnaret. I don't care. The bar was Tross. So the dragon in this episode, as they approach, represents the devouring mother. So devouring mothers are, a symbolic representation of a codependent relationship that, emotionally and psychologically, she's only seeks fulfillment through her children, and is inseparable from the role that she fulfills as sort of the penultimate mother. Sometimes they're considered to be dragon moms. Like you live your life through your children, essentially. And
like stay in the nest so that I don't then have to also leave the nest and be a and very like it hasn't separated her own role from like as a mother from the role of or from having other hats that she likes to wear because she is a full whole person. She is invested entirely in being a mom. And the bird's nest itself is not unlike the cave of the covert. So who is the devouring mother of the cave of the covert? Oh, the armorer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? She has one role, and her role is entirely to keep the covert as children, as eggs in the nest. They're all in their armor. And they're not allowed to break out of it. And I'm not saying that that's not helpful when especially you're in a time of insecurity and you need to protect those people, right? Or they need to be reborn symbolically as a people. But there's going to be a time when those birds, going along with the metaphor, or the dragons, need to leave the nest and make nests of their own, right? That's the parallel and the metaphor. And we know that the dragon represents the devouring mother because Ragnar is swallowed whole and is spit up to be fed to the children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, aren't the babies like they're like completely hidden in the nest and they sort of pop up? Okay.
So exactly like the crabs that we saw earlier, and also the covert itself, right? Like they're saying all the same things symbolically.
Yeah.
So it's not saying that there isn't wisdom in what the armor has to offer, but there's a point at which you have to break out of the shell. There's a point at which you have to leave the nest. There is a point at which you have to grow beyond the parent that is blocking you from advancing.
Mm-hmm.
They fight with the dragon, and she ends up getting devoured herself by something else. The bigger fish idea, right?
Yeah.
It sucks. Like they weren't trying to kill her. They were trying to use nets. They were trying to get Ragnar back without killing her, obviously, or attacking her directly. And it's like nature took care of that. I wonder if this is foreshadowing for our other devouring mother.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes before we talked, like, it feels like some big foreshadowing where this episode feels kind of
prophetic,
or
something,
It feels like the kind of episode that, is like, doesn't seem that important until it will when something big happens. But obviously we both really enjoyed it, but I think like kind of the larger consensus is like, well, that was short and uneventful, which is
I mean, I like any episode that
I love
the devouring mother.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we both had that reaction that this is like foreshadowing something big and important, and I was like, I think it's maybe something with like Din is going to be in danger, and that's going to be what gets Grogu to sort of get out of his, you know, bubble of you know, being a little baby, you know, and like go rescue dad. Whereas you thought it was more the armorer, which is interesting. That makes more sense probably.
Well, I mean, it's just sort of the parallels between the nest and the covert and the mom and, you know, things like that. They return back to the covert with Ragnar in tow and also 3 new foundlings, as they say. 3s are significant numbers. It represents life, death, life. So rebirth, past, present, future. 3 is a significant choice for 3 dragons.
Yeah. Sort of like Din, Bo, and Grogu.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, exactly. And the armor congratulates Bo for, you know, doing the highest honor of the creed, which is saving a foundling. And she notices that Bo has lost her pauldron and so offers to forge a new one, not with any of the trappings of modern technology, but with a you know, with the scraps that they have around of the Mandalorian steel. And Bo asks if, or the armor asks if she would like the night owl on her shoulder, and Bo answers, "Can I have the mythosaur?" And, you know, of course the mythosaur belongs to all Mandalorians, so that's appropriate. And then it leads down this merry trail of, are we talking metaphorically, symbolically? Yeah. Are we talking about real life of, what if I saw a mythosaur? What does that mean? And the armor, like, dismisses it in a, of course you saw a mythosaur, you're part of the cult now.
That's nice, sweetie. Yeah. You know, yeah. It's very much like, oh, you'll see many things when you walk the way.
Yeah. But it was real. Well, this is the way for it to be real. And it's really like challenging the, of course you're going to see mythical things if you start believing in the myth.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Questions for you. Is
Sure.
Bo buying into the covert's way of thinking?
Yeah, I think that's like the big question that I have this episode, where like, you know, a lot of people's reactions this season in general have been like, Bo, what are you doing? Like, you're like gonna drink the Kool-Aid, and like we're just all gonna go along with this, and this is the way, is like being used, you know, sort of uncritically and unironically, and I don't know. I think that's tough to say at this point. I think what she's doing is she's feeling things out to see, like, okay, what can I get out of this that Din has gotten out of it? Like, clearly, you know, this road doesn't lead all the way, you know, to where, you know, like we've talked about how they're static, they're hiding underground. You know, we sort of know from the past that Bo has a bigger imagination than that. You know, she's been to, you know, the fallen royal city where like her family once ruled, and she's sort of coveted the dark saber or whatever. You know, so her vision is much bigger than hiding out in a cave in the desert somewhere. But at the same time, you know, I think that people who I live a very irreligious life, but you know, I've been to church, and I've known people who, you know, people will go to like a, you know, what is it, like Unitarian Universalist church or whatever, and just kind of like seek truth and seek community and belonging. And, you know, there's that like search for, you know, that philosophical journey that people go on and say, well, you know, let me hear them out, you know, and, you know, in like college philosophy classes or, you know, religious studies classes, you know, you want to kind of meet these ideas halfway and interrogate them and question yourself, and that's healthy probably. And I think that's what Bo's doing, I guess, for my money, is I think she's kind of saying, you know, what is there that we can, you know, like if you have a mine and you're trying to get the Beskar or the magical, you know, whatever out of it that the Mandalorians get from the mining. you know what?
Do you think she's going to challenge for the Darksaber?
Oh, like challenged in. That's interesting. Yeah. I think probably. It seems like she's sort of slowly building back up her sense of, person, her ego, right? Like she's kind of building up to something, and to be like Mythosaur is for me, like she's thinking big, she's, even if it's like she's not conscious of it yet, she's like has big ideas for who she wants to be. And the armorer says like it is a noble vision to see the Mythosaur, and that's kind of what Bo has, is a noble vision of like the like being this King Arthur figure, and bringing Mandalore back from ruin or whatever. So yeah, I mean that's I think so. I don't know if it's going to be like, Din Djarin, I challenge you, or again, I thought the alligator coming out of the water and all these like weird sort of omens, with the kid being like Final Destination cursed. Like that kid is so doomed, sort of by the plot or whatever, that I feel like, some inciting incident could happen where it just kind of puts things in motion. You've got the cloning people and Pershing and Kane out there kind of scheming, and like almost anything could sort of put things back in motion to where because Din got the Darksaber just by like happenstance of like Grogu being kidnapped, and and he fought Gideon, got it back. So right, yeah.
I don't know. I miss his spear a little bit.
Oh yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
His Beskar spear is cool. And okay. I think that's everything. We don't know.
Yeah.
This episode was for Bo. It certainly says, Bo, you're meant to be a leader.
Yeah.
We don't know what it says for Din's journey, though.
Yeah. It's definitely like one of those episodes that is probably going to feel a lot more significant after the fact, which I think that Rick's first episode, that the one with the mud horn and the egg, had a similar kind of feeling for me, where like at first it seemed kind of like, oh, this is just to get from A to B or A to C or whatever. But in retrospect, we always bring that episode up as like, the platonic ideal of a Mandalorian episode. And I feel like this episode could feel like that. It is a little short, but
I do think that
it's
are
good.
Getting some mirroring of Din's first season journey with how you said it, right? With Bo, with Grogu. But Din himself is very stable right now. He's not transforming or changing. He's very much in a support role right now.
Yeah. I don't know exactly how I put it, but I said something about how they're sort of widening the scope of the show by including like Pershing's journey and stuff on Coruscant and playing around with Viewpoint, and this is another kind of instance of that, of like doing what you said about the title of the show, like, okay, it's about Mandalorians,
they've just
Grogu
made the title plural, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I do think that Grogu is going to be significant from a Mandalorian perspective too.
Yeah.
But Bo is also significant. They spent an entire episode basically telling her, you have the right to lead, Bo.
Yeah.
And telling us too, she has the right to lead. She led an entire party to save a Foundling, the highest ideal of the creed.
Yeah. You have that gorgeous image of like, okay, so you've got all these guys like sort of just running sort of thoughtlessly with their jetpacks and running out of fuel. And then you get the sort of Apocalypse Now THX 1138 image of the dragon, and then her ship following the dragon and looking very dragon-like. And so she's sort of larger than life and got that kind of
and also has the wisdom to lead.
Yeah. Like not necessarily like she's some chosen one messiah figure necessarily, but yeah, just like she knew to like go to her ship and not just kind of run after, like, yeah. she's smart, and her ship is like a sort of proper Mandalorian ship,
Exactly.
whatever that might mean. I mean, like all these people in the covert, like, do they even have a starship?
Are they stuck there? I don't know.
I don't know.
They're all baby birds in their little eggshells. In their shells,
right.
waiting for mother to allow them to hatch.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to tell what's going to happen. Again, I say I have this vibe that something's going to happen to the armorer because I don't know that she's going to change, right? And
sure.
I don't know that the covert can transform with her guarding the gateway like a gateway guardian for them to be able to transform. So I don't know yet. I would be very happy to find out that she transformed herself.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. I could see it becoming a thing where she goes from being the obstacle to sort of being martyred and becoming like this catalyst, this sort of like Agent Coulson in the Avengers figure, like, oh, we've got to make a good example and use like what she taught us, but they're no longer like in that gravity anymore. I don't know. I like the character. People are pretty harsh about the whole thing.
It's all symbolic. It's all metaphor.
Yeah, right.
It's all metaphoric, right? These are metaphors they are playing with, right? So, people are very harsh on the fact that Din hasn't broken free of his cult, but also the nest is warm. The nest is protecting. It is very hard to be taken out of the nest, but sometimes you don't have a choice. And that's what happened to the 3 baby birds that are in the nest. Currently, they were brought out of the nest. And so what will happen with Din, Grogu, and Bo are other 3 baby birds. I don't know yet.
Yeah. I don't know. We saw Bo's castle bombed, and we saw Grogu sort of just pluck the crab from the sand, and, powerful forces at work in the galaxy. And sometimes
something will force them to move. Yeah. All right, let's wrap it up for this week. Thank you everyone for listening. If you're going to Star Wars Celebration, a beautiful reminder that I am on a panel called Powerful Light, Powerful Dark on Saturday, April 8th at 1:30 p.m. Please come and hang out and enjoy me talking about mythology. And of course, we'll be back next week. Unsure about when I'm away at first Star Wars Celebration, how easy it will be to cover the show. We're going to talk about it when I get there and see if I can figure out a setup. But it might be a delay by a week. We might end up doing the last 3 episodes all in one go. We'll see. But thank you so much for listening. Alex, where can people find you if they're looking for you online?
I'm on Twitter at AlexJKane with a K.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. Cheers. Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is orchestral music by Christy Carew for What the Force. You can support the show directly on Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force: Melody in Wild Space, How Rude, Anna Perez, Neil, Christian Luca, Carly Ann, Josh Johnson, Scott C., and Susan. Support the show by wearing the Force with our merch. Like and subscribe on YouTube or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other podcast apps. It helps people find the show. You can connect with us on Twitter at WT Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook. Our website is whattheforce.ca, or you can join the Discord. Links are all in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.